Shivani Singh. Seychelles President Herminie is in India on an official visit underscoring the growing strategic and diplomatic ties between New Zealand and the Indian Ocean island nation. Let's start with knowing about what this nation is first. Seychelles, officially the Republic of Seychelles, is an island nation made up of 115 islands in the Indian Ocean. Its capital and largest city, Victoria, lies around 1,500 kilometers east of mainland Africa. The country's maritime neighbors include the Maldives, Comoros, Madagascar and Mauritius. Notably, Seychelles is Africa's smallest country and also its least populated sovereign state, with an estimated population of about 1 crore and 600 as of 2022. The islands were first recorded by Europeans in the 16th century, but remained uninhabited until the 18th century, when France formally claimed them. After gaining independence from the United Kingdom in 1976, Seychelles transitioned from a largely agricultural economy to a diversified market-based one, driven mainly by services, the public sector and tourism. Today, Seychelles stands out for having the highest nominal per capita GDP and the highest Human Development Index ranking among African nations. India and Seychelles share a long-standing and trusted partnership rooted in decades of diplomatic engagement and close people-to-people ties. Since establishing diplomatic relations in 1976, the two countries have steadily expanded cooperation across development, education, defense and maritime security. Building upon this, India and Seychelles have signed a series of 3 agreements, marking a significant boost to bilateral ties. At the center of the announcement is a $175 million special economic package from India, aimed at supporting public housing, mobility and critical infrastructure in Seychelles, with a strong emphasis on capacity building and maritime security. Both sides also signed a memorandum of understanding on digital transformation, under which India will share its successful digital governance models and proven technology solutions. People-to-people engagement remains a key pillar, with India offering training programs for Seychelles civil servants and stepping up cooperation in education, tourism and sports, particularly through youth exchanges on climate action, and the two countries have agreed to expand cooperation in renewable energy and work together on climate adaptation and resilience. The visit also marked a diplomatic milestone, with President Herminie inviting Prime Minister Narendra Modi as the chief guest of honor for Seychelles' 50th independence anniversary, coinciding with 50 years of diplomatic ties between the two nations. Looking ahead, India and Seychelles are set to release a joint vision document aligning their partnership with India's Mahasagar vision for the Indian Ocean region. India continues to position itself as a leading voice of the global South, championing the development priorities and concerns of emerging and developing nations on the world stage. Out of India's total line of credit portfolio of $32 billion, a significant share reflects the priority New Delhi places on its neighborhood first policy. India has extended lines of credit worth $7.86 billion to Bangladesh, $1.65 billion to Nepal, over $2 billion to Sri Lanka, $745 million to Myanmar and $1.43 billion to the Maldives. These commitments underline India's focus on supporting infrastructure development and economic stability in its immediate neighborhood. Taken together, the India-Seychelles agreements reflect New Delhi's broader vision of partnership-led growth and shared security in the Indian Ocean region. By combining development support, capacity building and strategic cooperation, India continues to amplify the voice of the global South, offering collaboration, not conditionality. The Seychelles partnership is yet another example of how India is translating that vision into concrete action on the ground. To discuss this further, we have guests joining us on the broadcast: Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, former diplomat; Commodore Anil Jai Singh, former Indian Navy officer; Pramit Pal Chaudhary, South Asia Head, Eurasia Group. Thank you all for joining us on the broadcast. We appreciate your time. If I can begin this discussion with Ambassador Kapoor, and what do you think of this expanding bilateral ties between India and Seychelles, especially given that 175 million boost that is being given?
Thank you, Shivani, for inviting me on this discussion. All these meetings and discussions at the levels of the heads of government in particular, and also occasionally heads of state or some of the other leadership, are extremely useful for fostering bilateral relations and expanding the scope and content and the interactions between the two countries in a very significant manner. Now, this visit by the leader of Seychelles to India is also similarly positioned, because when the president is coming here and signing all these agreements, it is going to increase the footprint of both the countries mutually. Now, India also, has the interactions with these countries, because each country is a sovereign country and each of them has a vote in the United Nations. And to create that relationship where whenever you need their support, they vote in your favor for whatever are your interests, are very, very important. So for us to have strategic cooperation, economic cooperation, geopolitical cooperation across boundaries is extremely important. Now, Seychelles may be a small country in terms of its population or in terms of its reach, but it's a very important country because it will have a long maritime border and it will have impact on the IORA, the Indian Ocean Rim Association, for example. It's an important member of that. So for India to get on board Seychelles on its side, particularly after having Seychelles been associated with the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, marks a significant step. So I think it's very useful to discuss with them about enmeshing more, because we do send a lot of high-tech experts to help them in their various areas. We do invite a lot of senior people from that country to study in India, to undergo courses ranging from a few weeks to many months. Thereby, they also understand the all the subject matter, but also understand the system in India, and then they develop bonding and networking with the Indian counterparts. So all those actions continue to be taken. But here, for example, when you talk about public housing, mobility, infrastructure, capacity building, maritime security, and then hone it down further to digital finance or digital infrastructure, for example, this helps in enmeshing and embedding the two countries together, so that for future they become even closer friends. So I think it has been a very good initiative, and for PM to go there during the 50th anniversary of Seychelles independence will be a further milestone. Thank you, Shivani.
Absolutely. If I can also rope in Commodore Singh on this. So when we're looking at defense cooperation between the two nations, what can be the scope if we see look at Seychelles, and also when we're looking at maritime security, because this is something that has cropped up even in the discussions between both the heads of the states, and we are looking at Prime Minister Narendra Modi and we're looking at the President of Seychelles actually discuss maritime cooperation. Seychelles is also a part of the Colombo Security Conclave. So that inclusion now, how will it help the maritime security in the Indian Ocean region?
Thank you, Shivani, for inviting me to your program. Well, our Prime Minister has very clearly articulated that defense and maritime security are the key pillars of the relationship between the two countries, India and Seychelles. So that in itself indicates how important maritime security is to the region. You are aware that the Indian Ocean is perhaps the most critical ocean at the moment in the world. Most of it connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Most of the the action, the geo-economic and geopolitical center of gravity has shifted eastwards. So the Indian Ocean has become extremely important. India is the leading maritime power in the Indian Ocean, and it is therefore in India's interest to ensure that all its maritime interests in the Indian Ocean are protected, and secondly, India retains its edge as the leading Indian Ocean power for time to come. So I think from an India-Seychelles relationship perspective, I will just highlight 3 or 4 points which reflect the importance of a strong bilateral maritime and security relationship. Firstly, you alluded to Mahasagar. Now, Sagar was the earlier articulation of our policy for inclusive capacity building in the Indian Ocean region. This has now been increased, the scope has been enlarged. Includes now this sort of inclusive capacity building to the entire global south. India, as the leader of the global south, wants to expand its reach and its ability to support the entire region. And therefore, this relationship with Seychelles, the strategic relationship, becomes important because Seychelles is not only a member of IORA, which is the Indian Ocean Rim Association, it is also a member of the Djibouti Code of Conduct Jeddah Amendment, which looks at maritime security in the Western Indian Ocean. It is also a member of the Indian Ocean Commission with other island states in the southwestern Indian Ocean region. And therefore, if India can bring Seychelles on board, and also that will help India also include these other multilateral constructs into a larger Indian Ocean or larger regional security architecture. And I think that is important. In the inclusion of Seychelles, you mentioned the Colombo Security Conclave. Well, that's a new initiative. It began as an NSA trilateral meeting between expanded, it has been formalized. It will be headquartered in Colombo, and Indian Director General is it, the way it's meant to be. So Seychelles has now been included as the 6th member. There are 5 already, 5 maritime neighbors, India's 5 maritime neighbors, and now Seychelles will be the 6th. So this is another very important dimension of how India is looking to expand its maritime footprint in its immediate maritime neighborhood towards being firstly a force for good, and secondly including these countries in the larger security architecture of the Indian Ocean region. Coming to the third point is Seychelles is a very important element from a maritime domain awareness perspective. With the rise in the non-traditional threats, non-traditional maritime security challenges, maritime terrorism, piracy, gun running, illegal human what is happening in the ocean around us. And that doesn't mean for India just the waters in our vicinity, but for India it means the entire Indian Ocean region. Therefore, we have established various information sharing mechanisms like the Indian Ocean Region Fusion Center in Gurgaon. Similar mechanisms have been established in various other places. So Seychelles also is a very important cog in this maritime domain awareness wheel, because some of these information sharing mechanisms are also located in Seychelles, particularly focusing on the Western Indian Ocean security. Thirdly, also Seychelles, the location of Seychelles is very important. It lies just north, or it sits astride actually the Mozambique Channel. Now the Mozambique Channel is a very important maritime passage for all the trade coming around the Cape of Good Hope and from Latin America. Therefore, it becomes very important that none of our maritime interests or our trade is threatened when it passes either through the Mozambique Channel or east of the Mozambique Channel. So that is another element. So we must ensure that we have adequate provisions to ensure the security of our own trade, besides looking at the larger security dimension of the Indian Ocean region. So I think in a nutshell, these are the 4 or 5 points that I would like to highlight as far as maritime security goes. Climate change is another one. India is a first responder. India is a preferred security provider. India has always responded immediately to any climate change eventuality, particularly extreme weather events. These are all going to increase slowly. Countries like Seychelles are threatened. Their very existence is threatened because of rising sea levels. And therefore, it becomes very important for India to ensure that it provides climate resilient architecture, climate resilient infrastructure, climate adaptive practices, all of which you have mentioned, all of which are included in the joint cooperation statement. I think these are all very important things. And finally, I'd like to add one more thing. This is a very interesting thing which I was just having a discussion the other day. While it's all very well to talk about things like maritime security and presence of fleets and naval exercises, what do the people in that country look for? That people-to-people relationship is built on capacity building within the country. Providing healthcare, providing better educational facilities, digitization, as you mentioned. So I think India, because of its Mahasagar policy of inclusive capacity building, is also doing plenty in that regard to improve the people-to-people relationship between the two countries. So I would suggest that in a nutshell, these are the 5 or 6 areas particularly of interest to India as the leading maritime power in the Indian Ocean. Thank you.
Absolutely. In fact, let me rope in Pramit Pal Chaudhary on this as well. When we are speaking of people-to-people contact, when we are talking about bilateral ties, earlier there was a point in time, Mr. Chaudhary, when we used to talk about the string of pearls in the Indian Ocean region, and now that has changed into talking about India's Sagar and Mahasagar initiative. Do you believe that these are some agreements, these are some MOUs that are actually pushing forward that Mahasagar vision of India?
Yes, the string of pearls still exists. I mean, that strategy, if you wish, has not disappeared. China continues to develop port facilities, military capabilities, and other relationships in the Indian Ocean region. So we are still cognizant of that and should be. What we are seeing, yes, is a response to that and trying to develop an Indian sphere of influence in the Indian Ocean, where we try to persuade countries both on the littoral areas of the Indian Ocean as well as the island states that they should consult with us about security issues, and that will help them as much as we possibly can on their economic concerns. So Indian Ocean islands, particularly the Republic, Seychelles, Mauritius, the Malagasy Republic, Sri Lanka, obviously, Maldives. These are countries which we have been working very closely with. In almost Sri Lanka and the Maldives, of course, we have a very strong historical relationship with. Same Mauritius, but Mauritius and Seychelles have traditionally been under French or British influence, and we're slowly seeing them over a period of time assert a degree of independence from their traditional European partners. Mauritius, of course, is of largely Indian, 50% Indian ethnic origin. Seychelles is Creole, doesn't have as strong an Indian influence, is more French, but increasingly has been looking to India for some of the reasons that have been mentioned. One is economic. It's been a tourism destination, largely for Europeans. We're starting to see Indians go there as Indians become wealthy enough. Seychelles is a bit expensive. As they become wealthy, they're starting to see Seychelles as a tourist destination, even a wedding destination. But also Seychelles is trying to diversify its economy. It's been overly dependent on tourism, and we saw during the COVID years in particular, many of these tourist-based economies are badly hurt. And what they're looking for is a model that we did with Mauritius, where we helped develop an IT BPO industry and technology sector in Mauritius to generate employment for the young. And you can see part of the deal that we have with them right now has been to further develop that capacity, so Seychelles can develop a degree of non-tourism employment in their country. They're a big fisheries nation. As the Commodore mentioned, they have an economic exclusive zone of 1.4 million square kilometers. A huge chunk of the Western Indian Ocean is controlled by them. And they've been facing depredations from Chinese fishing, illegal Chinese fishing, which hopefully we're helping them fend off. So on a whole bunch of fronts, we are working closely with the Seychelles, as the Seychellois, as we are with other island nations in the Indian Ocean. This is part of a set of different strategies. Sagamala is just one of them that we are using to develop Indian and contain Chinese influence in the Indian Ocean. Keep in mind that we have had previous Seychellois political system has had previous Indian interventions on their behalf. In 1986, during the Rajiv Gandhi regime, Their president Rene twice faced a coup attempt against him. And in one case, I think it was June 1986, we actually sent a warship to Seychelles with Marcos, Marine commandos. They didn't actually do any fighting, they just docked there and carried out exercises to make it clear that India would defend President Rene's government against any military coup. The coup failed as a consequence, but it's one of the examples of Indian determination, if you wish, to help its friends and maintain a degree of stability in the Indian Ocean. And while Seychelles is not normally part of the radar of most Indians as compared to, let's say, Mauritius or the Maldives, it's very much part of our overall strategy, as I've mentioned, of ensuring that we are the dominant player in the Indian Ocean and the first country or the first government that these countries should turn to for assistance, aid, and economic partnership.
Absolutely, Mr. Chaudhary. In fact, if I can rope in Ambassador Kapoor on this, influence of China that we are trying to counter. A very important part of this agreement, sir, seems to be the digital transformation, the digital help that India is willing to provide, the solutions and trade in local currencies. This is something that India looks forward to doing with Seychelles.
Indeed. The advances which India has made in the digital space and in the financial digital infrastructure space is phenomenal. And I've been closely associated with some of the organizations which are working in this space, including creating the National Digital Financial Infrastructure and the UPI, for example. So the maximum number of UPIs in the world are, for example, happening in India. And for India to take its digital expertise in the space that we are planning to do that will be very, very beneficial to Seychelles, and it will further, help them to develop faster. Also, have direct network and linkages with the rupee, for example, to foster the rupee trade with that country. So there will be multiple benefits. Plus, it brings in transparency. Plus, it makes the entire banking system more efficient. So all those benefits will accrue to Seychelles in the next few years, because we will help them to understand that this is the future, this is the way to go, and the banks will also have to adapt to those changes. It's not easy, but it is required as the way going forward. So that will be very, very useful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Shivani.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Kapoor, Pramit Pal Chaudhary, and Commodore